All right, here we go. Dealing some hope. Totally excited about taking a new effort to start doing some Monday Night Lives together where we can talk about hope, talk about things that are going on all over the place. Totally excited that kind of in an every other week format, going to have a guest from leaders who are part of We Are the Hopeful, those connected with us from around the country, even other nations of the world are going to join right here live with me ongoingly on every other week throughout the year. So one week you're going to have me. The next week you're going to have an opportunity to hear from me and other leaders who are doing amazing things from across the nation, even across the world. And I want you to be able to receive from these amazing leaders who are doing awesome things. So next week we'll have a guest with us. So if you're jumping in here right now already, love to see some hearts, thumbs. If you want others to catch this and gain from this, hit the share button and send this out on your wall so others can participate and be involved as well. If you've got any comments, questions, of course, we love to try to check those out as we're talking and as we're going and see if we can interact and engage some in that kind of way. So we're thanks for those that are jumping in here both live and those that are catching it on the replay. Trust this is able to go and reach as many as possible because we're going to talk about some significant things, some mindsets and heart sets that we need to continue to grow in, continue to move in, continue to expand and develop across the earth. And it's centered around the heartbeat of Father's goodness and the reality that we currently live in. I call it present reality thinking. I call it the present reality of hope. Hope is not something about the future. It's not just about something that's for down the road. It's not off somewhere someday. Hope is here right now for you, in you, and with the situations you may find yourself in, whether they're great situations or whether they're challenging situations. Hope is here. It's with you currently, with you present. And so tonight we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about why is there hope? Why is there even something that we call hope? Why is that even a word that we have? I mean, hope really, as an English word, right? It's like any other words. It's just the best way we could figure out how to formulate what we're talking about. So, hope in the four-letter English word hope is nothing significant in and of itself. It's only the word, the term that we've formed to attach to a concept or to attach to an understanding or attach to something that we're trying to describe, right? And so this thing, what we call hope, is not the four-letter word. It's actually something that is transparent of that, something that is beyond that, something that is bigger and broader than the narrow English word that we can put on it. It's even broader than the Greek language or the Latin language. It's broader than all of our capacity to try to figure out how to articulate, but we're going to do our best to see how we can talk about how there's hope, because it is a present reality. It's a place that you can live from rather than always trying to get to. Hope really is something that we live in. It's and Hope Equals Bold, my new book that is just impacting people like crazy. I'm so blessed, so blown away. This past weekend, I was speaking in Kentucky, and a lady there came up to share with me afterwards what Hope Equals Bold has been meaning to her as she just lost her husband and just lost her father just shortly after that. So she's been in a tough moment. Hey, JP from Japan, man, good to see you. Awesome things happening over there. We're thrilled that John Paul is in Japan, releasing the present reality of hope and Father's goodness in that nation. JP will be one of those leaders that will be on here with us in the future. So anyways, back to Sunday, I was hearing this story from her and how much Hope Equals Bold is totally impacting their life, just blown away by it. But we dig in to the reality of hope. We call it present reality of hope, that begins to center our understanding around present reality. It speaks to us about what we have instead of what we continually and oftentimes perceive that we don't have. We live in such a, to use a big kind of term, we live in such a dualistic mindset, meaning there's a bunch of things over there and a bunch of things over here, and we're trying to figure out which one to be a part of and which one we're in. And the reality is that dualistic thought has stripped our capacity to understand a lot of what I call present reality thinking. What do we have currently, right now, at hand in our life? Where are we? There's a whole lot we could talk about that, but centering that around the understanding of hope, we've been able to consider what we see where we're told in Scripture that we'll have these three things forever. It's listed out as faith, hope, love, right? And it goes on to say that the greatest of these is love, right? And I know you've heard that. Probably everybody's heard that, if not at least seen it on some nice Christian bookstore picture or coffee mug somehow. But nonetheless, it's been preached all kinds of times, and I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with communicating the high value of love, because its importance is of the utmost. But I think we've so often communicated the idea when we hear the greatest of these is love, it's like our mind attaches the English word greater to mean more important, more valuable, perhaps bigger, perhaps stronger, but in some way having a higher level of significance or value than the other two listed there, both hope and faith. And even as a young guy, I remember thinking to myself, it's kind of tough to understand because really at that point, what's the point of hope and faith if the greatest of these is love? Just go over here and do love, and who needs to worry about number 2 and number 3, right? When you've got number 1, if we perceive the idea of the greatest of these is love, we perceive that as meaning the most valuable or most important. What's even the point of listing the other 2? And so when I began to look into that and consider that further, I started checking out the Greek language there, and the word greater is can attach more to our English word elder, E-L-D-E-R, or eldest, meaning the firstborn or the oldest, or in other words, the one that comes first. And of course, someone having 4 children, I can think through the concept of the eldest. Myself, I was the eldest. I was the firstborn of between my sister and myself. And so obviously I've got my firstborn who is the oldest, but he's not the most important. Now, he may think he's the most important, of course, right? All you firstborns out there understand what I'm talking about. We can certainly think we're probably the most valuable, most important, strongest bit, whatever, right? But the reality is we're not. We're not more valuable. It's awesome. Good to see you guys. Thanks for jumping in here. It's not that we're more valuable. It's not that we're more important. It's simply that we arrived first. It's simply that we came into play before the others. And so when we see that the greatest of these is love, we understand that love isn't something of more value or more importance or better than or greater than. It's simply that which arrived first. It's what is the origin, if you will, or the source. It's the beginning point, because we understand that not only does God love, He literally is love. And so love is what was there first. It was the origin. It was the source. It was the place from which all things began to emerge and extend from. And so when we see Hebrews 11 then talk to us about that faith is the evidence of things hoped for, we begin to realize that apparently without hope, then there's not a place for faith to be. In other words, faith is what spawns or comes out of hope. When hope is in play, faith begins to emerge, because we have to challenge ourselves to know and understand that faith is not just simply believing, right? You can believe all day long and not be in faith. So the reality is we have to be those that recognize that faith is such a belief that it generates and produces actions that correspond to that belief. And so, in other words, if you just believe and don't have corresponding actions that work with that belief, you're simply in belief, not in faith, right? And so what we begin to see out of that is a picture, if we can connect all the dots, to see that if the greatest, or the origin of the three eternals, faith, hope, and love, if the greatest or the eldest, the one that came first, is love, and hope is what is necessary for faith, then we begin to recognize that love is what produces hope, then hope is what produces faith. Now, why would that be of any importance? It's because we begin to realize and recognize that out of love is where hope emerges. In other words, we are then able to begin to see why there's even hope to begin with. It's an offspring or an outshoot or an outworking of love. In other words, it is what goodness does. It's what goodness provides. It provides this place of unconditional assurance. See, when you have love, that's the love of Father and who He is and of His goodness. What is produced out of that is the reality that we call hope. That goodness is what's being extended towards us. Goodness is what's flowing towards us. Goodness is what is in the Father's heart coming our direction. He's not holding back on us. He's not holding out on us. That was the trick that was going on in the garden, right? With the two trees. The trick there was saying, well, you're going to have to step up and do something because Father didn't do enough to make you good or like Him. So, guess you're going to have to do it yourself. And so we took matters into our own hands, right? And fell into the deception that we have to produce something in order, because in some way, in the back of human thinking, if you will, it was as if God was holding out on us. And so it didn't produce hope. That thinking produces fear. That thinking produces what we call fear, or this response, this mindset, this mental state, this mindset and heart set that says that I'm without and I'm lacking and I'm going to have to do something to make this better. Where love casts out fear, right? It pushes that out and causes that to go away, because love is the assurance of goodness that's flowing our direction, not being withheld and not being held out on. And so when we recognize that, we see that this thing we call hope has its origin in love, because it is the outworking of love as goodness that's present with us right now. It's here. Hope is here. It's in this moment. It's why we have this thing called hope, because when we encounter and awaken and become attentive and recognizing of Father and His goodness and His love towards us, it settles us in an unconditional assurance that goodness prevails. That's how we've come to define hope. And hope equals bold. We talk about that through the whole book and help our mindsets come into the reality that hope is not a wish, hope is not a want, although that's how we primarily use it. We primarily use the word hope all the time in the context of that we are wanting something or we're wishing something, when in reality that's not what hope is at all. Hope is the unconditional assurance Father's goodness prevails, which is the outworking of love that then stirs within us and releases us in this place of faith when we actually believe His goodness prevails and His goodness is moving towards us. Then we begin to act on that belief. We begin to go, as Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians 3:12, that we have this hope, so we're very bold. So we begin to move in a place of boldness. We begin to dream in the place of boldness. We begin to talk and act and move and think and create and innovate and go for things and stand in a place of boldness like we've never done before, because we're settled in this unconditional assurance Father's goodness prevails, and it stirs action beyond just believing, right? And so that's why we have hope. That's how hope is even in play. It's the outworking of the goodness of Father. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. I can't wait for you to join us on one of these calls in the future, or one of these videos as well. It's going to be awesome. But yes, that is the outworking of Father's goodness. So these three things we have forever: faith, hope, love. But the greatest, or the one who comes first, is love, producing hope, this thing we call hope, which is this unconditional assurance of goodness coming our way, that then causes our belief to rise to the point that bold actions come into our lives, and it begins to cause us to move in new and fresh and life-giving actions, and it begins to release a frequency from our heart, from our very being, a frequency that begins to attach and attract the goodness that is around us in life, and begins to clear ways in front of us to move into that which we've been given to do to do in life and dream of in life. And you and I become those who live fully alive because we've awakened to the reality of Father and His goodness in such a way that we begin to live our life from the reality that hope is here. Not something we're waiting on, not something down the road somewhere. Hope is here right now. You're not ever without hope. You're never hopeless. Hope can't go down and hope can't go up. You have the full measure of the reality of hope at every moment. You have these three things forever. They're the eternals, and you're in those. You're in it right now. And so I don't know, maybe if you've got some thoughts or questions on that, love to hear from you on that. I've actually have online courses concerning hope called The Foundations of Hope, which is a 10-hour class that takes this that much deeper. It's not a boring situation. It is literally 10 hours of breaking open the present reality of hope. And then we took that into a second class that's 5 hours called Hope Awakens Sonship. And man, you don't want to miss that key. And then it moves even into a third class will be so powerful for so many to get a hold of this, that we called The Future According to Hope. And so be awesome if you want to get on any more of those for further input and further dialogue and discussion as we're growing in this and moving in this, because the reality is Father's goodness is what is awakening in the nation, the hearts of sons and daughters who will rise up in the reality of who they are and the goodness of who He is and the beauty of who they are, and live from the place of hope. So boldness becomes their reality and they explode into living fully alive. Because here's the deal. I'm imagining a world where every heart lives fully alive, where we can literally begin to release hope icons who are developing hope circles that are unlocking a hope culture in every nation. And you and I got to get it settled in our heart why there's even hope. It's not your hope. You can't produce hope. You don't make hope. Hope is not origined in you. Again, in Hope Equals Bold, I explained that for quite a bit, to understand that hope is the product of love and it's not yours. If you are left to produce hope, if you're anything like me, you're going to be left going up and down a whole lot, because if hope is simply optimism or positive thinking or good feelings towards something, we've got a whole lot of shakiness going on. But if hope is the product of the love of the goodness of Father, then we've got solid ground to set our feet on and explode into the future with boldness and go for everything that we've got and to truly live fully alive. So that's probably enough for tonight. We're so excited for these Dealing Hope Monday nights. Trust you make time to join us in the future. If you had hit the thing here on Facebook that would let you get a notification whenever I'm live, you have an opportunity to know every time that we're live. Again, next week we'll have a guest with us, a tremendous friend out of Michigan who is doing fantastic stuff. He's a legit hope dealer going on up in Michigan. You don't want to miss that. Next Monday night, 9:30 Eastern, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll be dealing some more hope. So thanks for all the hearts, the thumbs, the comments, the questions. Thanks for shares. Let others know what's going on. Connect others in this as we all merge in the present reality of hope, adjusting our futuristic thinking into present reality thinking and going forward with boldness. All right? Thanks for jumping in here. We'll talk to you guys later. Keep at it.